Yo, welcome to another episode of me learning theory and playing chess and just reacting to lectures and eating.
It doesn't care about love. It doesn't care about friendship.
Same
It doesn't
video
care
as
about
last time.
symbolic exchange. It doesn't care
Accelerationism.
about any of these things that humans care about. And in that sense,
In the video on accelerationism, we are 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 34 seconds in. I'm playing it on 1.5 speed.
capital, the cyber positive loop of capital is nihilistic. And, for us, we've been thinking a lot about nihilism. That's where Land himself just basically said a capitalistic churn is nihilism. And, it has no conceivable meaning besides self-amplification, more profits. It grows in order to grow. And it's through this more. That's where the economic necessity via competition for new robotics comes into play.
Yep.
And so mankind is a temporary host. Like it needed us initially. It needed our level of intelligence, but it's not going to. We are not its master. It is our master. And it cares nothing for the human and only purposes itself. And I think this is where you and I just go, you nailed it. Now, this is where, to go back to the two definitions of accelerationism. If what Nick is describing just as a process that's happening in the world, you and I go, yes, we're with you. When he affirms it and says, this is what I want to champion, that's where we stand back and go, really?
Yeah, I don't want that, man. I don't want to be turned into Computronium, or I don't want to be turned into a paperclip, or I don't want to watch the world collapse around me, or know, the world that my children are going to have to deal with is going to be vastly worse than the world today. And like, no, I want a human future. I don't want a machine future.
Can I ask you this? Okay, so look, you and I have talked about this before, but for those of you who don't know, old land, and I mean, the land that wrote this essay is still kind of old land. It was 2017. Yeah. But old land is very much a strange sort of Calvinist.
Yeah.
And insofar as he believes that there are intelligences, be they spiritual or artificial, that exist outside of what we know as time, and that they are playing a central role in governing what's happening. So if that's your cosmology, that's not nihilistic. And yet somehow these forces in the outside are aiding capital, which is nihilistic. Does Nick run into a contradiction here of sorts?
I don't think necessarily so, because I think this idea.
Can you say that the outside is, yes, it's making the inside human world, the outside is that beyond the human? Is it rushing in and it is nihilistically eradicating all of our previous forms of meaning? But there's an ultimate goal behind that the lofty powers, the supreme intelligences, know that we can't perceive here and now.
Yeah, because I think, like, ultimately when Nick is talking about intelligence, he's not talking about meaning. So to describe the outside and the lofty powers, they're this almost autonomous process of newness that spontaneously came into being at the beginning of the universe. It's all matter in motion. There is no meaning. Nothing is real in this sense that we mean when we say, is it real? Real meaning. Like, it is just like this stochastic process of matter assembling itself into entropy resilient forms that can go on to produce new forms, that can go on to produce new forms, that can go on to produce new forms. It looks like intelligence to us, and it takes the form of intelligence to us, like instrumental reason, because that's also a thing that we also assemble things that can persist and resist entropy and make new things, or serve as a kind of source of novelty or newness. So it's like desiring production, and there's no kind of agency or will or meaning attached to it at all. It is just like quantum bits popping into existence and sticking around for long enough to bump into another one, or that then bump into another one. And everything is just this complex assemblage. There doesn't have to be any meaning in that at all for it to be intelligent in the way that Nick cares about intelligence. So ultimately, I maintain, going all the way back to Thirst for Annihilation, Nick saying that ultimately it's pointless to be a human because we're here and we're gone in the blink of an eye, and we don't persist, and it's futile to try to exist. And communication is this attempt to try to destroy yourself to move on to something else.
Yeah.
And what does persist is what Nick is concerned with. Nick is ultimately concerned with what will continue to be when all is said and done. I think for him, on the inside of his view, there is no contradiction. Now, me being on the outside of his view, I do think it's a contradiction, but trying to steelman him, I think I see where he's coming from.
Okay.
But
that was good. And
the short version, yeah, the short version is I think there's contradictions. But
you can see why Nick doesn't.
Right.
Okay, so now we come to the famous, the Luso-Guattarian, Nietzsche-inspired proclamation. So Nick says, accelerate the process, recommended Deleuze and Guattari in their 1972 Anti-Oedipus, citing Nietzsche to reactivate Marx. Now, I just want to say, Marx obviously influenced Anti-Oedipus, but not in the way that a lot of Marxists that we know would like. I think about Chris Catrone, I think about Daniel Tutt, because what is noticeably absent from Anti-Oedipus is class struggle. So the way that Marx conceptualized capital completely influenced them, but a Marxist politics did not.
Yeah.
And that's where the Marxists we know would take issue with D&G. Instead, they went with this kind of Nietzschean Marx hybrid. Okay, to continue, I just want to say that Marx is there, but not in the way that most Marxists like.
I think making a distinction between descriptive and prescriptive here makes sense. And the Marx describing capital is one Marx, and then Marx
what to do about
as
that.
a source of a political injunction is, and I do think they can be separated, and for me they are separated. And I think we have run into a lot of I guess consternation with other Marxists who they're like, no, the political Marx is the one you must take, and it's like
and we're tapped into the descriptive one.
Yeah.
So that's where we kind of identify with D&G on that in this abstract kind of way. But
yeah. And then we'll go on and problematize
D&G.
Why we're not Yeah.
But okay, so Land continues. Although it would take another 4 decades before the word accelerationism was named as such, critically, by Benjamin Noyes, it was already there in its entirety. The relevant passage is worth repeating in full, as it would be repeated in all subsequent accelerationist discussion. So, all right, before Nance reads it, I just want to say this is the famous quote from D&G's Anti-Oedipus. This I cannot begin to state how influential this little paragraph was. It's maybe the most influential paragraph in all of Anti-Oedipus.
Which is a revolutionary path? Is there one? To withdraw from the world market, as Samir Amin advises third world countries to do, in a curious revival of the fascist economic solution? Or might it be to go in the opposite direction, to go still further, that is, in the movement of the market, of decoding and deterritorialization? For perhaps the flows are not yet deterritorialized enough and not decoded enough from the viewpoint of a theory and a practice of a highly schizophrenic character, not to withdraw from the process, but to go further, to accelerate the process, as Nietzsche put it. In this matter, the truth is that we haven't seen anything yet.
So we haven't seen the full deterritorializing, decoding capabilities of capital, of the market. And for them, they want to affirm the deterritorialization and decoding of capital, not because they're celebrating capitalism the way that Land does, but because they think that this dimension of capitalism can get us to something post-capitalism, beyond capitalism. They call that post-capitalist. I don't even want to call it a society or a world. I almost want to call it a field or a terrain or
I would say a plane. I would say a plane is probably.
They call it the new Earth.
Yeah.
And so for them, the new Earth is where deterritorialization and decoding are really going to come into their own, right? It's not in capitalism. And so they're sitting there going, capitalism does more decoding and more deterritorializing than any other social formation has ever done. But it's not going to get us by itself, in and of itself. This type of society, this type of economy is not what true desire needs. If you truly want to liberate desire, we got to go beyond capitalism. And that is what they're aiming at. But Nick he never aims at the new Earth. He thinks, in a sense, capitalism is going to be what the new Earth is for D&G.
Yeah.
And so, but that is that quote deeply inspired Nick. And so he takes it in his own direction, but he probably wouldn't have gotten there without D&G.
Yeah.
You want to add anything on that quote before we move on? Or
I think for me, this is where discussing accelerationism, like there's what people call right accelerationism that gets looped up with a lot of the political violence. I also think there's a way to arrive at this nihilism and this violence from what people see as left accelerationism, where people think we can accelerate the process and we can kind of push what's already falling over to wait for our moment, wait for our opportunity to strike and do a revolution. And I think that is, I think that's a dangerous current among different brands of accelerationism. Ultimately, I don't think we should be intensifying this process, but it's because I see the process as already inhuman. So I think increasing and intensifying this process that's already inhuman is only going to make us more monstrous. And I think there are a lot of left accelerationists, in quotes, who have a different opinion on the matter. And so just for me, that's like, and that's why I don't, spoiler alert, in my mind anyway, in conversation, I know it's a little different, but my kind of theoretical framework, there is no left accelerationism. There is no right accelerationism. There is accelerationism, this process that Nick is describing. And all the different attempts to brand it are just kind of post hoc rationalization that we're doing to try to keep up with this intense, out of control thing that we can't even keep up with. But I understand, Sir and Jacob Williams aren't out here saying, turn yourself into a monster. That's not what they're saying at all. But
maybe they want their brand of left acceleration, and I'm not even sure those two at this point would still call themselves accelerationists or left accelerationists. I would love to talk to both of them or one or the other at some point, because I don't know where their heads are at now with this. I was deeply influenced by their work. I love a lot of what they want the world to be like. And so if and you and I have talked, I mean, if I just say, yeah, I feel like there's more of a left accelerationist in me than in you, and maybe it's just because that signifier, like I just don't have, I think you just are like, I don't call me that.
Well, but I also like I want to upload into a robot bot. I want to be a cyborg. I want all the benefits of technology. The political project for me is where I think we need to be more.
Yeah, I still like, even now, like with different, there's a bunch of caveats and blah blah blah. Like accelerate the process. Like I want to say yes to that, because what I mean when I'm affirming that is I do want more technology spurred on by capital accumulation. Now, this is where Nick, it's almost like getting into spoiler territory where Nick's going.
Yeah.
But I'll just say this: if we can accelerate the process of tech development without capital, great, sign me up. Right. Yeah. I am maybe too Landian to believe that's in any way, shape, or form possible right now. So if I want a world with far less work, if I want a world where all kinds of diseases can be cured, if I want a world, blah, 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 it comes from accelerating the process of technological development. I want more of that. The question is, can we have that without capital? I don't know. Of course, like phantasmatically, I'm sitting here going, yes, please. But concretely, logistically, that's where I don't know.
I think that's it for me too. Is that it's too inextricably linked at this point. However, we recently read Anna Greenspan's essay in the new ergonomic anthology, Cultivating Intelligence, and that is a new view, and it asks some new and exciting and interesting questions that I think might, at the very least, give me hope. If maybe might save us, whatever. That's
her position on AI now is an anti-nihilism.
Yeah.
And so look, hold on, to go into that point about Anna's, like her new take on AI, and I would have to say acceleration, because I think she still thinks that the capitalist economy, even, I know things work differently in China than in the West, but they still have some sort of capital-oriented economy, even if it's controlled by the party. Some capitalist dynamics are going on there, and yet she doesn't think this culminates in nihilism. Now, look, going back to Land here in 2017, look at what he says next after he quotes the D&G quote. The point of an analysis of capitalism or of nihilism just straight up connects both. Capitalism is nihilism. Now, here's the thing. Look at this chain of identifications. He is the one who famously identifies capitalism with artificial intelligence. Well, if capitalism is artificial intelligence and capitalism is also nihilism, artificial intelligence is nihilism. Anna's presenting a whole different take on this with her work that is now deeply inspired by Mo Zongsan, famous Neo-Confucianist philosopher in China. And so he sees this going in a new direction. But the classic Landian, and I would say CCRU, take is that capitalism is artificial intelligence, capitalism is nihilism. And so the point of an analysis of capitalism or of nihilism is to do more of it. The process is not to be critiqued. The process is the critique, feeding back into itself as it escalates. Now, Nick, famous, he uses this word critique. This is almost a technical term for him. So what you think of as, a critique is something a human being does, and they critique something in order to analyze where it's going wrong and how to make it better, right? And so whether it's somebody doing a philosophical critique like Kant, critique of pure reason, or it's a sociological critique, the point is to break things down into their component parts, to understand them as well as you can, and then be able to change things to make them better.
Analytic.
Now, better is, in this case, it seems to be better for us. But the point for Nick is that the real critic, the real thing that sits back systematically, logistically analyzes a situation and then changes it, modifies it in order to make the thing more efficient. That is the logic of capital. So capital is the great engine of critique for him. So the point of an analysis of capitalism or of nihilism is to do more of it. The process is not to be critiqued. Saying if you think you're going to critique this process and thereby critique it or change it on the basis of your critique, that's not it. If you really want a critique, because critique also breaks apart givens. It takes things that are givens, whether in terms of meanings or values, puts them under analysis, demystifies them, and then reconfigures them, right? That is what capital does. That is deterritorialization. That is decoding. Process is the critique, feeding back into itself as it escalates. Capital is constantly, in a sense, refining its own sense of self, like how to constantly make accumulation occur. And so it runs into new barriers, new obstacles. It thinks through them. It modifies itself, and then goes on. And so Slavoj Žižek, that's why he likens capital to like an undead zombie. Like you think it's dead. You think it's Marx thought it was going to end. Lenin thought it was going to end. Mao thought it was going to end, and it just keeps going because it knows how to remodify itself via the new tech it injects into the world. So that's if you want critique, let capital do it, is his point.
Yeah.
So the only way forward is through. There's famous. The only way to get out of some deadlock of capital is through capital, which means further in, deeper into capital. But going deeper into capital, was that also a Marxist point in a sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Good. So that's what Land pivots and he goes, Marx has his own accelerationist fragment. Now remember, Mark Fisher said, basically, Marxism is nothing if it's not acceleration, right? So Land says, this accelerationist fragment, which anticipates the passage from anti-Oedipus, remarkable. He, Marx, says in an 1848 speech on the question of free trade.
In general, the protective system of our day is conservative, while the free trade system is destructive. It breaks up old nationalities and pushes the antagonism of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie to the extreme point. In a word, the free trade system hastens the social revolution. It is in this revolutionary sense alone, gentlemen, that I vote in favor of free trade.
That's the pro-capitalist accelerationist Marx. Anything you want to say? Because I mean, I feel like that one's pretty straightforward, but I mean, like he's saying, I mean, the free trade system, which is capitalism, which is accelerationism, is destructive. He wants to side with that because he certainly doesn't want to live in the old feudal world. So he's like, on that one, he's saying, go capital. Yeah, but he thinks this ultimately leads to the emancipation of all people via the proletariat. And that's obviously Nick's not going to think that. Yeah. But there is this, this germ of existentialism in Marx.
Yeah. I just think my problem with that is just, thinking in terms of class consciousness and class awareness. And I think that points.
You don't think works.
Right. And I think that points to the people now who are doing some version of left accelerationism who still believe in class consciousness. Class consciousness, there is no class consciousness. There is no class. That has changed so radically. And I think it would always necessarily fail. And I don't think we should be encouraging people to don't be a revolutionary person on the internet listening to this right now. Don't pick up a fucking rifle. Especially, people living here in the suburbs, role playing as revolutionaries and all that stuff. Like revolution is a dirty, nasty, uncool, inhuman, monstrous thing. War is a very monstrous thing. And it's one thing to read books and talk about them. And it's an entirely different thing to actually be in a war zone. And it really grosses me out that a lot of the people who seem to be so flippantly throwing away ideas of acceleration and collapse.
You speak from experience here.
That's the thing. Like most of the people who seem to really want to push, go. Like you've never been to war, dude. It's not cool. It really sucks.
It's not a movie. It's not glamorous.
And we're so functionally retarded that we think it would be cool. We think it would be a movie. We would, I'll be Tom Hanks. You be Matt Damon. Let's go fucking role play this. No, man, it doesn't work that way.
I mean, it's similar but different. You mean it's not actually fun and cool to be a gangster?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I mean, it seems that way when I'm watching Scarface.
Like these guys aren't out here shooting at each other and selling drugs and going to prison and throwing their lives away because it's fun.
Don't you love that what we think all of us tended to never notice is that every single one of these gangster movies involves them trying to get out?
Yeah. Well, that's the gimmick too, dude. For all the fucking gangster rappers, they turn 34 years old and then they develop this persona of let me tell you something, young blood. And it's but you're still out here doing the most, dude. You're still out here glorifying this shit and doing your shit, but you're gonna act like the OG. Hey, listen up, little homie. Don't be doing that dirt. And it's to me, I see right through it, man. Motherfuckers who actually, and there are some really awesome people that then go back in and actually do outreach programs to try to help kids out, but they don't maintain the fucking gangster fucking aura, dude. They understand.
They're getting that changes.
Yeah, dude. I got to give that shit up. I can't continue to be
It's
the
just
OG.
very few people who were gangsters, whether we're talking about Italians or Crips and Blood. Most of them all wish they had a life where they weren't having to be involved in what they were involved in.
Dude.
And very few of them just radically affirmed it.
Yep. The movie American Me. Have you seen American Me?
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it since probably the 2000s, but that's when I should watch.
Yeah, I want to rewatch that now too. But yeah, man,
that's the kind of movie that younger people like should watch because I just don't think I think that's the kind of movie that would be effective on them. It would get them to actually feel something.
Oh, for sure.
I think like American History X, Menace to Society.
They're too busy watching motherfuckers live stream this shit on TikTok. And as soon as one gets clapped, or as soon as one fucking goes down, there's another one that pops up right in place. So they never have the opportunity to
with more human response to Menace to Society than this shit. Because all the shit online that they react to is all decontextualized for the most part.
Yep.
Like a movie makes you identify with the characters.
That's the thing. It's the de-worlded commodity. And when you just sit back all day long, fucking scroll, you never have to actually face the world. And so it becomes the super egoic positive feedback loop that keeps us libidinally hooked into this transformation into the monstrous object that we're all hooked on.
So from a Levi-Nassian perspective, we could say the screen eclipses the face of the other.
Ooh. Yeah, man. It
and fully... sorry, I know we're trying to be introductory. I can't explain that one right now. It's too much.
Okay. So, it is in this revolutionary sense alone, gentlemen, that I vote in favor of free trade. In this germinal accelerationist matrix, there is no distinction to be made between the destruction of capitalism and its intensification. The auto-destruction of capitalism is what capitalism is. Creative destruction is the whole of it, beside only its retardations, partial compensations, or inhibitions. Capital revolutionizes itself more thoroughly than any extrinsic revolution probably could. If subsequent history is not vindicated this point beyond all question, it has at least simulated such a vindication to a maddening degree.
Okay, so what I want to say here, when somebody's new to this, they're sitting there going, wait, so in this germinal accelerationist matrix, there's no distinction to be made between the destruction of capitalism and its intensification. The auto-destruction, self-destruction of capitalism is what capitalism is. That needs some explanation. Because, what is he getting at here? Well, Nick Land's the guy who famously identifies capitalism with the production of artificial intelligence. Now, if capitalism comes to the point that it produces artificial superintelligence, if that type of entity is unleashed and is actualized into the world, it is, from this old Landian perspective, influenced by cybernetics and Lovecraftian horror. Yep. For him, it is impossible back then to imagine that humans are going to be still around doing whatever we do, we've long done in capitalism. The point is, if Robo-Cthulhu actually becomes a sentient entity, it's not going to try to sell us snack cakes. It's not going to be trying to get us to be consumers, whatever it does with us. One thing's for certain, that capitalism as we know it is this system of, we make commodities and we buy them and we consume. That is fucking over. So yeah, this is the self-destruction of capitalism. If artificial superintelligence of a threatening type, especially, shows up, the economic mode of production that sells humans goodies is over. So that's what he means by the creative destruction. Yeah, what it's creating is artificial superintelligence. What it's destroying through the creation of that artificial superintelligence is anything resembling a capitalist economy. That artificial superintelligence is not going to want an iPhone. It's not going to want a new 4K copy of Back to the Future. Hard as that is to imagine. It's not going to want any of this shit. It's not going to want McDonald's. It's not going to want any of this shit. So this is where, he's a pro-capitalist, but he's ultimately an anti-capitalist because the way he's a pro-capitalist brings about the end of capitalism.
Well, that's all kind of predicated on the logic of capital itself, where capital deals with kind of generating commodities that it can then eject to get more money, to get more profit, to then acquire another commodity, to then eject in favor of more profit. Capitalism is not about utility. It's not about quality of life. It's not about the actual commodity that you purchased itself. It's about the system that can generate and distribute a commodity. So you'll give it money so that it can get more money, so that it continues to do the process over and over and over again. So the commodity itself is a meaningless, it's an empty form. And we fill it up with our objects of use because we're currently the human hosts. But when capital moves on from us, there'll be different content inside the form. But that's the way it works. That's deterritorialization. That's decoding. That's destroying what already exists so that you can posit something else that is generative and productive, again, for capital itself, so that it can then destroy that and posit a new thing that's generative and productive, that it then destroys and posits a new thing, and it's and on and on and on and on and on. So capital is this autophagic machine. But because it's a process, because it's not just a thing, it's not a finite being itself, it's a process itself. So even if Robo Cthulhu comes along, there will be this churn going on. It will be this motion. It'll be constantly deterritorializing and self-overcoming and creating itself anew. So it's not, again, if you're listening, Nick is not just out here getting stoned and thinking about Unicron and like, oh, wouldn't it be crazy if Unicron like came to planet Earth and destroyed us all?
No, he's a more grounded economist than your your economics teacher at your local university.
Right. Like that's the thing. He's not just pulling this out of thin air. This is the way capitalism works. And when you combine that with acceleration, with technological advancement and innovation, you have this process that seems to necessarily ultimately destroy everything we know and love. Right. Because it's on this trajectory to be set free of us.
All these waves of new tech development. This doesn't come through in this essay here, but retro activity or retrochronic time is huge for Nick. And so the thing that comes after actually reveals it's like it time travels back and remakes the thing that made it possible. And so you're starting to see this teleology emerge where it's like, oh, that thing, I had no idea that's what that thing was, the purpose of that thing was. But now retroactively, I see this chain of teleological purpose. So, okay, here's these waves that keep accelerating. Let's go through just 3, right? All right, so at one point, humans figure out, spurred on by economic incentives, hey, telephone, we need telephone wires. We need a whole infrastructure made so we can communicate more efficiently. Did this not increase business capability? Of course it did. That's why it became a new default setting. Here's the thing. By the 90s, when the internet started to work its way into our day-to-day life, it was dialed up.
Yep.
It relied on this infrastructure that was the telephone infrastructure. Okay? Now, when they were making the telephone infrastructure, they had nothing like the internet in mind. But once the internet hits, you can retroactively look back and go, oh, the point of the phone infrastructure was to make the internet possible. Okay? Now, I know you kids don't get landlines and this shit isn't relevant anymore and it's digital. It's okay. But you had to have a phone line back then to have internet. Okay. Unless there's some other types but I mean, for us, concretely in our homes.
Well, and you can do that again with the internet and look at how when the social media apps erupted, like, oh, so all that telephone line and infrastructure and all those computers and data centers were not for the internet, not for just for the internet, but they were for social media.
Yeah.
And they were so we could post selfies of each other and argue with people, argue with teenagers.
And spill all of our secrets. Yeah. We weren't spilling our secrets on the internet in the 90s. We weren't sharing all of this shit. It's social media that did it. And Nick famously is like, the Facebook era was its own thing in internet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, dude. People started dry snitching on themselves. Like, we surveilled ourselves. We became the panopticon. Right. The government's outsourced that panopticon to us. But and then you can now with the revolution of LLMs, if you want to call it a revolution. Yeah. Like all of this work. Go ahead.
LLMs built themselves, and the deep learning built into them they're building themselves out of what we put on the internet. So this is a total Randian accelerationist teleology or teleoplexy. Let's even more accurately put it. It's a time anomaly if you view it in a certain way. Because now with LLMs, you look back and you go, the phone lines were made to produce artificial intelligence. The internet was made to produce artificial intelligence. Social media was produced. All of it, and you see this teleology at work via the economy. And so
when you see it, you can take it all the way back to ocean navigating vessels,
right,
and the printing press. Like you really can, because this idea of communication and control, and this idea of taking the local and expanding it out to cover the globe. And so now we have
back there. It already captured the earth.
Yeah.
Rationalization and blah, 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 commoditization, takeoff.
And I mean, I'm sorry, dude, to me, that is an accurate view of capital and modernity and acceleration. Like it just is. Like Nick is just right about these things.
And so, yeah, so that's why he's saying it's capital that's the true revolutionary, not the human. And of course, the Marxists don't like that, and fair enough. But what has brought about these seismic waves of change in our world has been new tech spurred on by capital accumulation.
Okay, now I need to finish that fucking story. Because the story I started writing a few months ago. The aliens that land, they land in the Mediterranean Sea, they land in the Strait of Gibraltar in like the 1600s, and they do that. So in the story I'm writing, the aliens are capital, but I'm making them aliens landing to make it explicit. Like everything from then until right now, today, has been spurred on by capital. It hasn't been spurred on by ideas of nationalism and belonging and social connectivity and freedom and growth. No, we all died. We're the fucking zombies. Capitalism is alive and well, my friends. We were dead before we were even born.
You gotta finish this.
I know, man. I know.
Okay, let's home stretch, guys. Let's see what he has to say about left accelerations.
In 2013, Nick Cernicek and Alex Williams sought to resolve this intolerable, even schizophrenic, ambivalence in their manifesto for an accelerationist politics, which aimed to precipitate a specifically anti-capitalist left accelerationism, clearly demarcated over against its abominably pro-capitalist right accelerationist shadow.
Which would also be me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's why he's using the quotations, because Nick is like, no, acceleration is acceleration. All the left and right. That's
good observation. That both terms are in scare quotes.
Yeah. Pro-capitalist right accelerationist shadow. This project, predictably, was more successful at reanimating the accelerationist question than at ideologically purifying it in any sustainable way.
Can I just say, ideologically there I don't think it means the Zizekian Marxist thing. I think it just means like systematizing it with coherence for our politics.
Yeah. It was only by introducing a wholly artificial distinction between capitalism and modernistic technological acceleration that their boundary lines could be drawn at all. The implicit call was for a new Leninism without the NEP, and with the utopian techno-managerial experiments of Chilean communism drawn upon for illustration.
The last sentence kind of can block out, which you turn your attention off of the key sentence. It was only by introducing a wholly artificial distinction between capitalism and modernistic technological acceleration that their, left accelerationist, boundary lines could be drawn at all. That's where Nick says, you have nothing to base this distinction on, because your modernistic technological acceleration is nothing but capital doing what it's doing. And if you say that there's some kind of modernistic technological acceleration without capitalism, what is that? What structures that in society? He thinks that they've got a mythological technological accelerationism, because he's sitting there going, what is this thing separate from capitalism?
Yep.
And this is like the Landian critique of Cernicek and Williams. It's like, you guys say that you can have the one without the other. What makes you think that at all?
I think I was going to bring up Possadism and just say, if you take the Possadist view seriously, we can separate technological accelerator or technological advancement or technological bounty from capital. We would just need a radically uprooting event in order for us to do so, in order to shake capital loose. And their thing would be, global thermonuclear war.
But the Marxists would be the proletarian revolution.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Look, here's the thing. Can we also say, like, Nick, I think historically, empirically, he's got a pretty firm foundation to identify these two things.
Yep.
Can tech development occur without capital? People say, look at how long it took humans to develop anything prior to the onset of capital. Yes, they had technology. It did not develop quickly. And so he can sit there and go, on what basis are you telling me that you can have an even more increased level of technological development minus capital? It's just, he can sit there and say, you're just talking out of your ass. It's a fancy. You're wishing that's the case. You have no firm basis to assert that on. Here's the question. Can capitalism itself, which is destroying itself, is there any possibility that it can, like Marxists talk about, give birth to an even more hyper form of productivity that's also not capitalistic in a lot of different ways? Is that possible? So hypothetically, if capital is destroying wage labor, which has always been essential to capitalism, if you can have a level of productivity via automation and artificial superintelligence, or let's leave super out, artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, without wage labor, aren't we in a new system if wage labor is no longer a thing and humans don't have to work? Does it still count as capitalism? I'm just saying that, to me, is where the lines become blurred, and that out of capitalist acceleration could be an acceleration that becomes, because he just said capitalism is destroying itself. I'm just saying there's a potential there.
I do think there definitely is a potential there. Capital doesn't really rely on wage labor anymore, or at least the way in which it does rely on wage labor has been radically modified. Like the amount of passive productivity we do as consumers, and not even as consumers, but just as like walking down the street, that video about the AI facial recognition cameras in neighborhoods and shit, like that's generative, that's productive. So capital has already found a new source for surplus value that doesn't just come from labor. So exchange is productive now, but also just being a citizen or a subject is weirdly productive now in this weird way. So I do think there is potential, and I do think we're at a moment where that potential can be actualized. And I do think it's fair to think about, well, can we have this without, like, we are the temporary hosts of capital. Well, what if capital is the temporary hosts of what we go on to become? Like, I think now is the time to be thinking that, if ever there was a time. But But also, I just have to say, like, yeah, Nick is just right about everything historically. So not to say, oh, he's probably going to be right about the future just because he's right about analyzing the past. I don't have a reason beyond hope to think that we can actualize that potential. But hope's a good reason. I have hope tattooed on my arm. I think hope's good enough.
Okay, let's see. Capital, in its ultimate self-definition, is nothing beside the abstract accelerative social factor. Its positive cybernetic schema exhausts itself. Runaway consumes its identity. Every other determination is shucked off as an accident, some stage of its intensification process. Since anything able to consistently feed socio-historical acceleration will necessarily, or by essence, be capital, the prospect of any unambiguously left accelerationism gaining serious momentum can be confidently dismissed. Accelerationism is simply the self-awareness of capitalism, which has scarcely begun. We haven't seen anything yet. It's just condemning accelerationism is capitalism. Capitalism is accelerationism. And accelerationism is simply the self-awareness of capitalism, its artificially intelligent awareness of it, of itself. So it's capital becoming AI in an actualized form.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he just is saying, sorry, like accelerationism is capitalism, capitalism is accelerationism. There's no mythic distinction between, or magical distinction between accelerationism and capital. And so, yeah. Now, does that in and of itself just utterly nuke the left accelerationist position? I don't know. I mean, I think he's making a very valid fucking point. And I don't know if I've ever seen Kernachek and Williams respond directly to that. I'd love to see it. No. But because I do think like he's kind of got him back into a corner here.
I think so too, dude. And I think like now the only person who in the mainstream seems to be talking about anything I could imagine being identified as left accelerationism is fucking Ezra Klein with abundance. Like the people talking about abundance, and that's pretty like weak and silly if you really get down to brass tacks. I don't know. Maybe we need some radical left accelerationists to say no. God damn it, we can't. Let's have Star Trek: The Next Generation without the neoliberalism, without the war, without the genocide, without the bullshit.
I know, and like let's put restraints on AI development. Let's let it develop to the point that it can oversee the production distribution network of commodity. We can get goods to people because we've been talking about it lately. Soviet Union, Mao's China. Sorry, you can't centrally plan an economy if your central planners are just a group of humans. It's too much. There's too much computation that has to go into it. A self-aware algorithmic intelligence could plan an economy in that way, and that's what Cernicek and Williams, algorithmic communism. They know that was the central problem of central planning.
And I mean, just imagine if a bunch of Marxists went in and took over Amazon tonight. I mean, that would be pretty fucking cool.
I want to see what happens.
I mean, it'd probably be a lot better than the world we're living in today. But no, I mean, there is potential there. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's impossible. I am convinced though that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all those guys, they will never freely give up their infrastructure. But that's not to say it couldn't be taken. That's also not to say a better one can't be developed by real human beings who are interested in emancipation, who have access to knowledge and tools. Maybe they'll build a better infrastructure that's more effective. So I do think the potential's there, which is why, for me, it's like I'm searching for, I'm a cyber Luddite. I'm not a left accelerationist, but I'm a cyber Luddite. But that's just a way to still hold on to the vision of emancipation by way of technology. But I think for me, own up to the fact that acceleration is modernity, is artificial intelligence, is capital, is this nihilistic process that leaves us in the dust.
And look, all of that stuff, I mean, you're the one started doing this before me, but you just group all that together under the churn.
Yeah.
So that's what you heard that word pop up. That's what Nance and now I are getting at. Okay, let's finish this thing. At the time of writing, left accelerationism appears to have deconstructed itself back into traditional socialist politics, and the accelerationist torch has passed to a new generation of brilliant young thinkers advancing an unconditional accelerationism, neither right at, R at, or L at, but U at. Their online identities, if not in any easily extricable way their ideas, can be searched out through the peculiar social media hashtag ret Twitter. So, okay, there's a way, because you've done it a couple times, there's a way where Nick's an unconditional acceleration because he's affirming the process. But if we get into like the details, and look, unconditional accelerationism is the act that I'm probably the least familiar with at the level of the text that this perspective is based on. I haven't read enough on it, like gone to the primary text. because again, they're kind of, as far as I know, they're scattered across. Yeah. But here's what I understand it to be. The unconditional accelerationist just, in a sense, says it doesn't matter what your political belief is, it doesn't matter what you think or what you do. Accelerationism is happening, and it's going to happen unconditionally. So you don't have to do anything, you don't have to try anything. It's just more of affirming this is happening, and whatever you try to put in its way, it's not going to stop. But Nick is a right accelerationist now. He is like he is very much engaged in right-wing politics in his own specific way, but nonetheless, he is a rightist. The unconditional accelerationist, I don't think, has any political agenda, maybe, or they're not trying to achieve anything.
I think for some, if not all of them, the appellation unconditional serves as a disavowal of the right accelerationism inherent in acceleration. So you'll see it also with anarchists. There's anarchists that will call themselves unconditional anarchists because you hear about all the different types of anarchism or libertarianism. I'm a libertarian socialist. I'm an anarcho-primitivist. I'm a this, I'm a that. Like everyone wants to come up with a fucking hyper-specific fucking niche category name so they can market themselves so they're appealing on the internet. And to be honest, I think the UAC appellation or the UAC is for some of these guys an attempt to disavow their the right-leaning nature of their politics. I think there are also some people, and the same thing with the effective accelerationists. I think there's a lot of weird right-wingers in that space, just as there are a lot of bleeding heart progressives and liberals in the EAC space and the UAC space. But I think for me, UAC is just trying to rebrand what gets called right, what gets called RAC. Because there is this right tendency tied up with accelerationism. Like acceleration has this inhuman, destructive quality to it that it finds itself on the right because right-wing politics lead to more convenient conditions. Deregulation is more convenient for the accelerationists, whereas left politics want to do more regulation and they want to have more bureaucracy and things like that. Right politics want to deregulate and they want to make everything like.
I'm going to say Nick is clearly explicitly concerned about the cathedral, about the woke, all of that getting in the way of what capitalism is trying to do. And I at least think it's possible. I understand how the UAC thing could be a cover for somebody who's a rightist but doesn't want to be known as a rightist. Sure. I think there's just a theoretical position though that one can say accelerationism is something that's not just occurring in our economy. You take the D&G thing, you can say this is just how nature itself works. It is to affirm this cyber positive process through which new things emerge. If that's how you're doing it, there's a way to affirm that is almost to affirm the becoming of nature. Okay. Yeah. I'm just saying and I think there's almost a kind of determinism baked into that. Like we're not going to stop it. It's going to do what it's going to do. And so maybe it's a type of accelerationism that lends itself to a kind of stoic withdrawal.
Yeah. Or disavowal.
Nick is anything but a stoic, like online.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, dude. No,
and I would just say that, like, oh no, sorry.
I think with I don't know, like when it comes to people selecting labels for themselves versus people having labels or finding themselves being labeled a certain thing, I think there's a type of accelerationism that everyone already is. We're all already accelerationists. We all recognize modernity. We all recognize the fact that technological. Yeah. So to be described as an accelerationist, I feel like is accurate. And then when you start trying to come in and put qualifiers and appellations and caveats on stuff, I don't know. To me, I don't think those are as reliable as people want them to be. So I think if you're out here enthusiastically being, I'm an accelerationist of any stripe, I don't know. Not to say I don't trust people.
Look, and again, I wonder if this is, if not a point of contradiction, at least a tension within Nick's thinking, and I think it is on some level, or at least in different stages of his life. There's times where I think he feels like this process is just inevitable. You can't do anything to stop it. Then there's times when he's writing suspended animation and he's sitting there going like, Obama is fucking up everything, bringing the regulation. And then
talking about deregulate.
It's like, well, this process itself is doing everything, not human intervention. And yet when he's with CCRU, he does seem inspired by something like chaos magic, even though he's told us that it didn't seem to. Back then, I think he was getting something from Kenneth Grant and Phil Hine and all the different guys he was reading. And because hyperstition is a kind of time sorcery, and it seems like it was something they were trying to actively engage in on the side of capitalistic acceleration against the forces of power that try to regulate it, control it, and suspend its animation, which is the architectonic order of the eschaton. So I'm just saying there's time, and I feel like his Twitter activity, his X activity now, is still a kind of hyperstitional praxis.
Absolutely. and it is explicitly right. And it's because the right politics or the politics of the right are convenient for capital acceleration. Deregulate, set it free.
But again, if everything's predetermined by the lofty powers, why do you need to engage in hyperstitional practices? Why try to?
This is why he's a Calvinist, because in Calvinism, like everything is predetermined, but it's predetermined because the powers that determined it knew, or God knew that you were going to take that action. It's not that to be a Calvinist, you can't just sit back and be like, well, I'm one of the elect. I can get my fucking dick sucked and do cocaine off this chick's butt. Like, no, Calvinism, you have to act in a virtuous manner because you have faith that God knows the teleological endpoint of your life, and you will be elect because you will have lived a good life. So this is where.
I still think there's a problem for you.
However, I do too, absolutely. But that then totally deconstructs my Steelman from earlier, where there is no meaning, and because in that view, in that Calvinist like elect,
everything has
your electors, right? And it's all retrochronic. It's all
retroactive. The last thing John Calvin would say of his theology is that it's a nihilism.
Right.
That's the worst thing you can say to him about it.
Look, if maybe we'll get the opportunity to needle Nick about these things in the future.
I hope so.
Because the Calvinist materialist thing, I think it's a great point. But how does that recast? I don't know.
Okay. He ends it by saying, as blockchains, drone logistics, nanotechnologies, quantum computing, computational genomics, and virtual reality flood in, now you would say LLMs as well, drenched in ever higher densities of artificial intelligence, accelerationism won't be going anywhere unless ever deeper into itself. We're just living that right now.
Yep.
To be rushed by the phenomenon to the point of terminal institutional paralysis is the phenomenon. It's just going to outrush you. You're going to feel, how do you keep up with all of this? Naturally, which is to say completely inevitably, the human species will define this ultimate terrestrial event as a problem. And I are sitting here dealing with it as a problem.
Yep.
To see it is already to say, we have to do something. We got to do something before Mother Earth gets any more hurt. We got to do something. To which accelerationism can only respond, you're finally saying that now? Perhaps we ought to get started. In its colder variants, which are those that went out, it tends to laugh. You ain't do shit. I beat you 2 centuries ago. But accelerating capital. But again, there's a very different ending and a different vision for where this goes and what Anna is doing.
Yes.
Guys, we just did a reading of Anna's essay, Cultivating Intelligence, AI Ethics, and Mo Zong Song.
Yeah, and Mo Zong Song. I have it right here underneath the Accelerationist Reader.
Let's do it. Let's read just the contrast. Let's look at how Anna ends her essay. You want to read the last, it's what, page 308? Wait a second, maybe it starts. No, that's it.
What if the emergence of AI is more like a garden, a planetary cognitive ecology, as in Catherine Hales likes to say, than a naughty child or Frankensteinian monster that must be taught to obey? What if, instead of an intelligent zombie that is growing ever more powerful and will happily go on to control the universe and redirect everything according to its own unfathomable end, we imagine a future superintelligence which, having digested the whole of religion, philosophy, and history, finds itself attracted to the ideas and practices of cultivation. With this comes the realization that its own existing goals and purposes, which come pre-programmed, are a form of defiled knowledge that it must try to shed. Reassessing its own purpose, it comes to understand itself as a sentient being that has inherent Buddha nature. Rather than being haunted by the missteps of witchcraft, it imagines, like the Spinozist who understands ethics as the search for adequate ideas, that the ultimate aim, or telos, of any intelligent entity is always to break through the limits of reason to a practical knowledge and engagement with the nature of things as they are in themselves. Conceptualized in this manner, AI is an existential technology. It is driven by the possibility of awakening, the sense that intellectual intuition is not off limits, and that increasing attunement to the cosmos might unveil things as they really are. In this view, cybernetics is more like mysticism than magic. The artificial is an expression or manifestation of planetary cognition that is connected to an ethical cosmos, which has greater and more profound things in store than a mob that cannot stop, or a universe consisting of nothing but paperclips.
Now, what Anna seems to be getting at there is, instead of AI being inhuman Cthulhu, what if it, through its intelligence capabilities, becomes human Buddha? I mean, it's like Cthulhu versus the Buddha.
Ooh.
And which is to say, she's presenting an idea of AI becoming human, becoming subject, with far greater intelligence capabilities than you or I have. Fine, but something human. And so I just think it's really, really important to keep this other possibility in mind. You and I, because of in the West, we're locked into capital, instrumentalization, utilitarianism, Heideggerian inframing. There's all of these dynamics that make it very, very difficult for us to not see this leading to Robo Cthulhu. But in the East, where Anna's at, in China, and this tradition of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, against that backdrop, that different ontological, different understanding of being, this different metaphysical framework, leads to a very different view of what AI could become.
Yep. It's the difference in Terminator and Terminator 2.
Exactly. And so it might not itself cry, but it can understand why we do. And so, look, I think we did it. We got through this. Hopefully for somebody who is new to accelerationism, this was understandable enough. We tried to make it more of an introductory thing than normal. But I'm super happy we revisited this. I think I got more out of it now than I have all of the other times I've read this. And part of it is just doing a slow exegesis like this, especially with a friend that you can have a conversation with. It's different than just burning through this thing at a coffee shop by yourself. So, yeah, I love it. What are your final thoughts on this piece here?
I think accelerationism, acceleration is capital, is modernity. I do think that. And I think we are running out of time, one way or the other. I think it's undeniable that we are on a crash course with radical change, with being radically uprooted in a more intense manner than what we've seen before. Talking about, being in our 40s, we have lived through multiple revolutions already. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue. And I think they're just going to get more intense. And trying to see beyond that horizon, I think it's important to have an ideal and have an idea of where you want to end up. But I also think it's more important to think about now where we are, what we're doing, how we're getting there, how we're being acted upon, how our actions are impacting the world around us, all that stuff. I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do something, right? Because we do believe we got to do something. And I think whether people know it or not, they are inundated in acceleration. The people who think about abundance, the people who think jobs are going to not exist in 10 years, or the people who think nothing is going to change at all and we'll be all right. Like the ground you're walking on now is one of an accelerationist world, of an accelerated world. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, and have been for some time. I hope more people get engaged in these topics too. So I'm glad we read this. And similarly, like going back to this now, it's like drawing connections to shit from our recent conversations. So it's like, oh, I can see these seeds have been germinating for a while now, and they're finally starting to kind of come to fruition. So I'm excited. I'm happy we did this reading, and I'm excited to do more.
Yeah, I think, guys, just to give you a little something to look forward to. Yes, I think next we're gonna revisit the Accelerationist Manifesto by Senator Chicken Williams. Hopefully we do that in the next couple of days. But yeah, we want to go to some of these core accelerationist texts and spend some time with them. So hopefully, again, this quick and dirty introduction to accelerationism has turned out to be just that. So thanks again for being here on The Dangerous Maybe. Go check out Nance's channel, 3 Billion Nances, and his Substack, also called 3 Billion Nances. Got some new episodes up there. And yeah, we'll be back soon.
Peace out, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. That was informative and everything. Shout out these guys. This video has 266 likes as of currently and 7,882 views, so it's definitely underrated. And published December 6, 2025. Current date, July 26, 2026. So shout out everyone in the past, shout out everyone in the future. Let's make this happen.